Welcome. Welcome to the Poetry Flash virtual reading series. I'm Joyce Jenkins, Poetry Flash editor and director, coming to you from the Poetry Flash offices and world headquarters in Berkeley, California. And today we are pleased to present Amy Gersler and Ma Shine Win. The reading is co-sponsored by Moe's Books in Berkeley. And they've helped us create a bookshop.org link in the chat box. And you'll see it posted there. And you can purchase through that link Ma Shine Win's new book, Storage Unit for the Spirit House, and pre-order Amy Gersler's forthcoming Index of Women, and they will be mailed to you directly. Please check out poetryflash.org for reviews and interviews, David Shattuck's Poetry and Healing column, new literary events for all of California, North and South, and much more. To sign up for our event emails, scroll down on poetryflash.org to join our mailing list. Here to introduce our poets is Associate Editor Richard Silberg.
Hello there. Hi, Ma. Ma Shine Win will be reading first today. And she is actually an old friend of Poetry Flash. She was the first, the inaugural poet laureate for El Cerrito, and she used her laureateship to do some benefits for us, and it was truly a great pleasure. It's a great pleasure today. Her second book, this haunting new book, it is her second book, Storage Unit for the Spirit House. Now, to quickly explain that, the Spirit House is the shrine for gnats, which are like locust genii, gods of a particular place. And let's think about that title. We've got the Spirit House, which is an immemorial spiritual entity, and we're matching that with a storage unit, which is kind of an alienating techno kind of a term, and put those together and you have the kind of haunting dissonance and consonance of this book. Also, a storage unit is things that the gnat might need, or that we worship the gnat with. And the first couple of poems, Storage Unit 202, I think there are 3 of those poems, have a series of things: brass castanets, tin pants, and then into that list bursts directions to the other world, which to my memory is the only reference to the other world in this book. Ma can correct me if that's not true, but it's shocking and opens everything up to question. The book is really full of questions, and it's really more questions than answers. It's more space than, it's a series of statements, really, which are cryptic and and provocative. So this is a book of, it's a haunting, the gnats fly in at the end, who seem to be mischievous. They seem mischievous creatures, and it's haunting. We are inspired and filled with questions by this wonderful new book. So let's give her a flutter of jazz hands. More shine win.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that lovely introduction, Richard. And I'm so grateful to Joyce and Molly and Poetry Flash for hosting, and to all of you for joining us today. And as always, I'm deeply thankful to Rusty Morrison and Ken Keegan, and all the folks at OmniDawn for their amazing work. And I want to say a little bit about Amy. I met Amy in the 80s in Los Angeles through our mutual friend, Ed Smith, poet Ed Smith, who is unfortunately not with us anymore. And at the time, I had a little poetry and art zine called Lemon Fingers Emerge. Yes, I was a surrealist, and was delighted to publish her poems. And I would like to begin by reading one of them right now. And the title of the poem is A Circular Blessing. A circular blessing. You are forgetting all but the end. All our dreaded ends. We haven't much rope. An emblem that represents both length and leeway, confinement and toehold. You ignore what you know, what your scalp prickles with and your fingertips are certain of. You regard the earth as though shipwrecked here. You wait without faith for the rescue plane, counting the fins that circle your raft and the passing days as best you can, protecting your retinas from the sun's blare. You deny what your bowels insist. You resist yourself, sage. Our bodies are not made of iron. You resisted my efforts. You fought lovers off until you were drunk enough to plaster different faces and names on all of us. Stay where you are then, unassailable and safe. Seek the desert, pray for all us diseased creatures. Sleep on a palm leaf mat in a mud hut. Leave the world behind. Respect the elderly, hold our tongue. Find that wild and lonely spot. Become self-perfecting. Sleep with the windows open. Stubborn one, find a suitable diet. Cultivate your interests in the habits of birds. Let your mysticism reach its peak. Attempt to begin again. It's such an honor and pleasure to be reading with you, Amy. And now I'd like to share some poems from Storage Unit for the Spirit House, the cover. And I will begin with Sky Space 2. Found round stone in gutter, felt lighter. School bus arrived, stone remained in center of palm. Pink sky through window, oval cloud. Felt stone in palm and recalled a father who held a mug made of gold. Wallpaper in dining room, a forest to wonder. Counted people on sidewalk, girl pulling wagon under freeway overpass. Stone cold in hand, girl, cold in air, gold forest. Sky Space 1. The moon appears, reversibility, lucent coin, pre-operational stage. Stand on platform after stepping from train of eyes. Stranger anxiety, dazzling button, imprinting. Silent platter, secondary reinforcer. Lean against cement pillars, postural control. Try to find keys, proximity seeking. Car screeches from parking lot, avoidant attachment. Stare at sky through silvery natural domains. Skateboarder flips over sidewalk, affectance motivation. Begin descent down escalator, reunion behavior. And this is Sky Space 3. A limited edition annotated records for the researchers. Referred to footnotes about the survivors, how they lived, how they moved, how they breathed. Opened door and let sky inside. Thank you. Spirit House 2. My next door prison neighbor. We can't see ourselves. Garland of posies slung through iron bars. Gnat swinging from old rope. Can sense us holding our cups, cocks, crosses. Teardrop tattoo on cheek. Eyelash on pillow. We touch ourselves. And the title of these next two poems are lines from the novel Querelle de Brest by Jean Genet, which gives the outer pair the heavy look of bronze statues on clothes. Mind the maps of nerves. Beware statuesque rabbits who have abandoned their stations. Use heavy cream to cover the eyes of feral children. Oil the statues until they squirm like freshly caught trout. What does it mean to blow smoke through thick walls? Use twine to bind two hands reaching through prison bars. And this one is entitled, When the Galley Convicts Clanked Out of the Prison in Their Chains. Fainted, panted, close-up, scar, scallop, heft of flesh, gold-flecked space between two heads, light bulbs on wire. Matched action, roses, eyes, leather belt, light popped, corks on floor, smoke through rain, dirt on bare heels, birdcage, flute, snapdragon, tattoo dance, such delicate nerves. And this is called Halls, and it's in the anthology Colossus Home, which I recommend. Halls. Children not sleeping. Cement floors, mylar sheets. Small bodies turn, held sorrows, collected, panopticon. Held in cells, how do they hold? The halls get cold. The children are not sleeping. Cinema. The auteur pops pain pills. Hybrid, saga, biopic. Adrift in the headroom. Gnat escape, sirens, deep background. Close-up of beehive in a cemetery. Fugue state, reverse shot, tomb fur. Montage of lace handcuffs and cardboard boots. Choking ocean. And this next one is for my dear friend, Mark Dutcher, who did the wonderful illustrations in my book. Theater in 4 acts. Empire of sound, stage abandoned, invisible construct. Luma and chroma, spider-webbed, lake, drop, retina. Seabirds are fire flowers, sun totems, mise en scène. Blue light leaks through flecks of paint. A message or not. Theater in 3 acts. Where are the minnows? Song of gongs in Mini Mall. What happens to the body after soliloquy? Mine in mottled fur coat. When does the future arrive? Birthmark on forehead in shape of flame. And this poem is called Storage Unit for the Spirit House. The father at dining room table, shades drawn, wobbly throne. The daughters with their brown, shaky hands. A forest gnat haunts the master closet among the clothes moths, felt wolverines. Daughter number 1 hiding behind a juniper bush, bright longies, wooden handgun in metal case. Daughter number 2 sleeps with a long broom next to her bed. Mint chocolates under pillow. 5 a.m., the father drops a cold, wet towel on her face. Storage unit filled with boxes of LPs, Joni, Dylan, Carly. Back cover of Jimi Hendrix Experience. On 2 hits of acid, this will blow your brains out. Dusty military jackets, punishment belt, piles of lock boxes missing keys, jars of Nescafe, VHS tapes of Burmese pop singers. Daughter number 3 listens to father's records in the den, altered music room, sits on the piano bench near the door, the father in armchair, Joni singing A Case of You. Forest gnat flutters above in air smoky from Kent 100s. And this is from the 4th section of my book, and it's called Imaging Center. The pointer stick she grips, trails my twisting spine. She plots movement with the exactness of a fingertip, slow as the motion of a snail in love, my naked back on treatment table, coolness hardening into memory. Hospital, tinctures for pain, capsized vessels, hand reaches into warm body. She believes in magic, and so do I. Painted things, riotous hips and rib cage, a being filled with liquid. Stop, stop now. Please continue. Over is it yet? Sleeping twins, lost in desert, found in hospital, pointed things. Trinkets and scepters and waterfalls in Brazil, dragon fruit scooped into bowls, owls and blue spaces in parking lots, a slithering towards planted things. And this is called Containers. What about the spitting cobra? Why do I repeat myself? Does self-storage matter? Are your teeth still here? Who do you hold? Is this a panic attack? When do the cormorants arrive? Where does guilt come from? Do you see the calathea? What disturbs me? I witness each body through the missing bricks. Thank you. And this poem is from my longtime friend, Adrian de la Peña, who did the gorgeous art on the cover. Thank you, Adrian. And this is called Portal. Intersection of vine and trapeze. The white substance poured from her mouth last night, jug tipping, spilling onto tile. Eye that repeats itself in conversation with other eye. Sleep less, suspenders. Another gift from Aunt Jenny. Neighbor plays cello. The swan floats through silk drapes in hallways. Extreme isolation exerts a person. Radio between stations. Storage unit 202. The rental faces another house. When she arrives, there are wild turkeys in the street. It begins to rain. The storage unit in El Cerrito holds pinned moths in cases, brass castanets, tin pants, a box of cork buttons. She swims laps in the thunderstorm. And this is my second to last piece, and it's part of a new series I've been working on called Thought Logs. And this is called Thought Log number 5. My eyelashes are falling out one by one. Pink tarantulas. We experienced an understated turmoil. Chirp, dwell, earn. Evidence of future life forms. Marshmallow blooms in sleepy cul-de-sacs. Thought they saw a dagger in his side pocket, lit glint. I used to make a living playing air drums on YouTube. Has this department contributed to your personal and professional growth? Cortisol valleys. My husband grew up on Inspiration Drive. K-pop signature movements. Document your inner landings. She memorized all suborbital flight patterns. I'm drowning in honey. And this is my final poem, which is also the final poem in my book. Spirit House 6. The gnats had moved into the house on Inya Lake, zoomed through halls with pocket knives, tamarind seeds, green bananas. Family offerings of jade bracelets, cheroot cigars, deer tails. The medium danced wildly in the family room, drunk on palm wine, spinning, spinning. Orchestra of circle drums and copper bells played on the staircase, Natpwe. 8 children on the floorboards, leaping over uncles and cousins, shaking, shaking. Mother lit candles on the wall shrine. She spoke to the blue-winged insects. They whispered back. A gnat warmed itself by the flame. Auntie walked in a dream state, hot room. Cousin slowly opened a large trunk of teak and silver strips. The gnats flew inside, one after the other, after the other. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. I'm checking my directions to the other world right now. Okay, our second reader is Amy Gersler. A real pleasure to have her the first time in our series. She's going to be reading from 2 books. This book, I'm Scattered at Sea. It's hard to see the way I'm holding it up. This is, I believe, her 13th book. And then she's going to be reading from Index of Women, her 14th book. Hoo-ha, think about that. Now, Amy Gersler is relatively little, almost not at all what you'd call a lyric poet, by which I mean a sincere eye, speaking passion, or she seems to me more comfortable as a mind in all kinds of exploration, sometimes a persona, sometimes other beings. Like, for instance, 3 beautiful poems from Index of Women, which are a doll speaking, a lost doll speaking to its owner, and they are modeled after poems that Kafka wrote. And they're so, it's such a moving exploration and a creative exploration of who is whose God, who depends on who. There's a poem, I believe this is an Index of Women, about imagining being a man and making love as a man, with the great line, to be spelunker rather than spelunky. And she says that the problem in really getting there is she can't figure out what it's like to be hard, as a man gets hard. Now, for me, that's such a generous, exciting poem. I know what it's like to be hard. I've thought about being the spelunky pretty seriously. And there's so much of that kind of creative exploration. She You know, as a writer myself, I'm sure many people listening to this reading, viewing this reading, are writers too. She seems to be just an almost inexhaustible fountain of creative ideas and reversing things and turning them inside out and making them sense or nonsense. She's really a kind of a tsunami of creativity. And so we're so delighted to have her. Let's zoom in on Amy Gerstler.
Wow, thank you so much, Richard. That was an incredible introduction. And thank you, Joyce, and thank you, Molly. And thank you, Poetry Flash, which is an incredible, was part of my growing up as a poet and is a continued beacon, I think, to people who care about literature and poetry, and long may it wave. And Ma, congratulations on your wonderful book. I love that last image from the poem that you read, which is like the opposite of Pandora's box. All the ghosts and spirits are flying back into the chest rather than, I wish they would do that soon. So anyway, thank you all also for showing up to a poetry reading in the middle of a pandemic. I think that speaks well for each and every one of you. Okay, so I wasn't going to do this because I thought it was maybe, too obscene or something. But since Richard mentioned that poem where the speaker is trying to wonder what it's like to be in a male body, maybe I'll read that so it just doesn't seem too mysterious after his description of it. So let me see if I can get to that. And we'll just start off with a nice little sexual blast here. Okay, so this poem, this is my idea of a hilarious pun, is called Gender is Fluid. Some nights I wanted to be the shover, the pummeler, the battering ram, not the open door, open legs, gooey femi receptacle. I needed to know what it felt like to say, I fucked her, or I'll fuck anything that moves. I wanted to push in deep, feel gripped, tightened around, so I could better know my shape. Be spelunker, not spelunky. In dreams, I almost accomplished this, but didn't know what it was like to be hard, and therefore, ultimately, wasn't. Wilted straight away because I couldn't properly imagine it. Unconsummated straining was all I got in those dreams, when I wanted so badly to spill into her and drip down later between her legs. Hot broth shot off in the dark, short-lived rocketing, then be slammed as though a cartoon anvil had dropped on my head into sleep. Okay. Hope there are no children in the audience. I saw a little baby, but I know him and he can't talk yet. So I think I'm okay. This next poem is called Jellyfish Brains. Seemed like we'd just started to make tools to bury our dead so predators couldn't eat them. Didn't we domesticate animals just yesterday? Wasn't it only a month or so ago we first hollowed out grindstones? Didn't we just master pottery? It all happened so fast. How long since we first learned to herd camels? Since we figured out how deliciously wind fills the bellies of sails? Didn't we start carving figurines only recently? The ones we hang around our necks, little pocket gods to rub when we're scared. Feels like we raced straight from clay tablets to parchment to paperbacks in a day. Invented medicines along the way. First danced to bring rain yesterday. Minted coins only lately. Money playing no small role in our downfall. I read that a jellyfish's brains whirl in her skirts, that plants are really slow-rooted animals, that elephants dig their own wells. Who begat this miraculous world, shaped from nothing but sunlight and mud? Who let loose that universal music, more lovely than anything made by the hand of man, that sometimes arrives out of silence? Okay, I don't know about you, but this COVID confinement has kind of made me a prisoner with the worst possible person, myself. And I feel like I'm doing wrestling matches with my weird ego every day. And I have a feeling maybe I'm not the only one who feels this kind of self-entrapment these days. Anyway, so as a form of relief, I tried to write a poem about my ego. So this is called My Ego. My ego is a dented suit of armor, a designer gown with grimy lining. She's the cause of false beliefs. She fucks up my ability to love. She's prickly and tender as an artichoke heart. She proposes to me so frequently I can't hear other people speak. She's a self-anointed guide who materializes at my side with a flourish of trumpets and a bullhorn. She's a forged love letter, a jailer impersonating a friend. She's a series of flashbacks in which I'm both hero and victim. I try to bribe her into exile, but she calls herself my servant and falls weeping at my feet. I'm forever banishing her, this mistress of disguises, even as she clambers back into my lap, begging my pardon and getting all kissy with me, grabbing my hand and jamming it down her blouse. That's for everybody who's locked in mortal combat with their ego during this time. So the friend of Ma's and mine named Ed Smith, who was an extraordinary poet and didn't have any books in print until fairly recently, but the poet David Trinidad edited a beautiful book of his work called Punk Rock is Cool for the End of the World, which I heartily recommend. As Ma mentioned, he sadly isn't alive anymore. So this is a little elegy for him. It's called 4E. Pardon me for pretending I might wish you back into existence so we could chat. Better yet, I'd remain silent and bask in the sound of your voice. Music I'm ashamed I can no longer quite call to mind. I do remember your habit of chattering your teeth in a cartoonish manner when you got nervous or bored. And I'm easily re-seized by how keenly I once yearned to be your home away from home, your quiet tree-lined street between the park and that old stone church. But you slipped out of the party too soon, just as you always threatened you'd do. Remember being breathless together on the observation deck of the Empire State Building? We took the last elevator up to the 86th floor at 1:15 a.m., inhaled what drugs you had, and damn, they were good. How dizzily I miss you this minute, in which I find myself so much older, darling, than you ever lived to be. Check out his book. If you like poetry, he was really a wonder. This is called Storing Up. It will not hold, this whip stitch of peace, this clock tick of calm, this brief release. When no one's sick in this house and there's a mood of safekeeping and no one's pounding the wall or weeping. Vivid and fleeting, the moments flow, a trite thought from several hours ago. Someone yawns, someone else hacks and rasps, but it's nothing, all's well, though this will not last. That for now, all the floors are swept, and the animals fed, and the Sabbath kept, and the meal eaten, leftovers tucked away, and the world's chaos held at bay, and those made sleepy by eating put warmly to bed, their heads facing east. No, it will not last, this moment of peace. Yet if the earth keeps twirling, as I trust that she may, could this blip of grace live in me if I don't scare it away? Okay, this poem is a tiny little poem called Microdosing. People say a little of me goes a long way. I phone, say hi, maybe moan once or twice, then hang up. That's enough social interaction for one day. Okay. This is called Anthem. Dear blitzkrieg of wetness and breasts, dear masseuses and muses, thighs sluiced with juices, dear coven members posing this peppery question, is a witchy third breast akin to a third eye? Can we climb into the light now from cellars or attics? Can we abandon our nectar dance temporarily? Stop skimming the froth off the cauldrons, dial back our wound binding and child minding a while, and let our bravura arias ascend? So much depends upon courageous, ingenious, difficult women, prodigal daughters and wisecracking wives, bakers of exploding pies, giantesses in whose tresses condors nest, maidens with blood in their mouths, in whose chests beat antiseptic hearts. How is it your beauty never departs? Okay. How many of you believed in the tooth fairy when you were little? A small but elite group. So this was my attempt to imagine what it was like to be kind of a dark version of the tooth fairy. It's called Tooth Fairy Sonnet. I can't tolerate daylight, so I slip into the dim of kids' bedrooms at night, adorned with necklaces made of baby teeth. The color white makes me retch. I'd like to resign, become something other than a fang collector. I can fly, but only as a limp, boneless ghost, a spectral jellyfish with floating skirts, a marble quarry whirlwind. I smell of chalk dust, old dental records, ossuaries, loss, and skeletons cleaned of meat. My breath is a whiff of extinction. I have eyes like mustard seeds. No, I'm not pretty. To reach your world of porcelain drinking fountains and molar rotting caramels, I navigate a long winding tunnel each evening, parts of which are dark, and parts of which are the hurt pink of a sore throat. See, you don't want to wake up and see that tooth fairy. Yeah, that's one scary tooth fairy. I was always scared of the idea of somebody going around collecting your yanked out, still bloody teeth. I was like, who's that? I don't want them in my bedroom. Okay, this poem is called Nightlife. It's kind of your classic watching someone sleep poem. Nightlife. How can this equal rest or peace? This garble of gasps, snuffles, and horse-like snorts. His lips flutter as though he's blowing bubbles. His moans so choked he must be drowning. Or are his legs being sucked in by quicksand, the way a restaurant critic sucks the bones of her osso buco? In my overheated nightgown silence, I watch him flinch in a puddle of bedside light. A range of ages and plights wash over his face. Who is this sleeping, unshaven male? This slab of snoring meat? This leaky ship of divinity? I stare across the chasm which divides each waking or sleeping creature, whether they've touched each other or not. He's a magician who made an orchard disappear, an unhinged shooter from St. Louis, a plum-colored shadow, a handful of chameleon teeth, one of God's toboggans, a tree denuded of leaves, bleeding beads of amber. Okay, so I've always, and I realize that I am probably not alone in this, always been surprised about the value that different cultures place on virginity, since virginity is not knowing something or not having experienced something. And when I was growing up, I was always like, well, it's the best thing is to know or to have done something, not to not have. So that never made any sense to me. So I tried to write a poem about virginity, which didn't end up addressing that at all. Anyway, virginity. Lying down on the rug with someone and getting dust bunnies in your hair. The eloquence of long pauses. Passing notes rather than speaking. A basement fogged with pot smoke. Trying to read another body via its breathing. The idea that if you kiss someone, you can taste what they just ate. Refusing to eat what your mother cooks anymore, which hurts her feelings. But you can't stand dead sauteed animal inside your mouth now, so you have to spit it out. The myth that innocence is protective. The idea of not being able to stop. Reading secret magazines a cousin stuffed in the bottom of his sleeping bag. The idea that someone curious about your body isn't interested in the private theater of your mind. Theories that there might be a kind of violence about it. How mother insists that without true love, it's just worthless humping. And the idea that for the life you aspire to, she's probably wrong. What your body has promised for so long. The idea of your disastrous premiere. The idea of someone laughing at you after. The idea of hoof prints, stampede damage, stuff crushed underfoot. The idea of keeping all this hidden as you slowly lotus open. Okay, one of my favorite poems by Rilke. It has this word in German, nimmer gekommene. You know those lovely words in German that are long because they're like portmanteau words. They have the adjectives attached to them. So nimmer gekommene kind of means, or has been translated, not by me, as one who never arrived, which was always a beautiful idea to me, that Rilke was expecting this amazing love or angel to come to him that maybe never arrived. So I tried to invert that, and this is a little poem called One Who Is Always Arriving. You arrive as a limping bird who can still fly. You arrive as an inscribed leaf I need to read. Amid morning uproar, you arrive riven yet complete. You arrive at night as admonition, as apples striving for ripeness in their bowl, as herds lapping at a watering hole, as a torrent of warnings and blessings, as a stream of belief so molten that the joys, grudges, and griefs your arrivals inspire require infinite disguises. Okay, I think this is the last poem that I'll read today, and it's called My Late Wife. Does it surprise you to learn that I once had a wife? Someone to whom I showed my wounds, who made me dangerous because at unstrung moments with her, I was so happy. It's not something I talk easily about. She vowed to help me get my fate straight, a task obviously not within her power, but she seemed to have a great fondness for lost causes. I miss her sometimes, and at other junctures, not at all. Her skirts swished discreetly. She once disguised herself as a beech tree. Actually, it was a beautifully conceived Halloween costume. What did it mean that she often talked about the exhaustion of the masculine? That she took a course in spiritual warfare? That some nights she seemed to have spared my life? Or that one evening, after I'd said something unkind, she acted confused, pretending not to know what had hurt her. She liked a lot of ice in her drinks. She loved to propose toasts. She was a terrible photographer. More than half the people and animals she took snapshots of ended up decapitated. I gave her money I didn't even have. It's possible there were days I felt hollow when she wasn't home. It's possible that I held that against her. She always seemed to know what time it was by instinct. She cried extremely easily. She played the cello pretty well. She's still alive, but since we parted, I prefer to think of her as late, as in tardy or delayed, to believe that someday when I return home, she'll be here, having decorated the house with white bougainvillea, which she knows I like, to surprise me. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Okay, all right. Let me thank these two wonderful poets, Marshine Wynn, Amy Gersler. You give me some pre-Thanksgiving thankfulness. Here comes Joyce to sign us out.
Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Please check out the chat box for the link to purchase Index of Women by Amy Gersler. And Ma Shine Wind's beautiful new book. And I feel that that book is properly launched now. And please continue to check out poetryflash.org. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. So great to see everyone.
Yeah, thanks everybody for showing up. And it's lovely to see the postage stamp version of all of you.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Molly. So great to see everyone. Just seeing